cases from the colonial era to date. We are updating the last set of cases from last year currently. And we also have legislation. So this is also spanning the same period, pre-independence to date. We have primary legislation and delegated legislation, so CIs and LIs as well. So the library is where you go to if you know a particular case and you want to find it, or you know a legislation you want to find it. We provide suggestions as you type. So it's the as you type the suggest you get suggestions which you can just click on and load. And once you find a case which is relevant, you can click and open it in a new tab. And for every case, we provide an AI-generated brief. So there's the general summary, the facts, the issues, the holdings, principles, history. If there's a panel of sorry, if there's a panel of judges on the case and they're any concurring or dissenting opinions, you get sort of a high-level summary of that as well. And then you have access to the case document. And similarly for legislation, you can click and load the document. For legislation, we provide a table of contents which you can toggle from this hamburger menu in the top right. And with that, you can just scroll to particular sections that you want to read. So the library, that's the library in a nutshell. Then the smart search feature is what allows you to use semantic search, like George said. So he's already explained the difference between keyword search and semantic search. But I'll just use an example of this principle that a person cannot be held guilty of an offense unless mens rea is established. Right, so you can type in principles, facts, issues, or even keywords that you want to find. And what happens is we search through our database, pull up the most relevant passages, and you have access to that in the results page, right? So you can see here, and just to rehash the key difference between keyword and semantic search. So unlike other tools which will be looking for one or more of these words in the hits, what we do is we try to understand the intent of your query and we pull up passages which are relevant based on the meaning of your query, right? So you may find that not all of these words may be in there, but then the actual meaning is captured in the results that are provided. Right, so by default, we sort the results based on the relevance score which our AI model generates. So as you scroll down, you see the relevance scores reduces, but you can also sort by the court. So if you want the most authoritative court on top, you can sort by court. You now have Supreme Court, Court of Appeal, and so on and so forth. You can also sort by the most recent. So if you want to have just the most recent cases, irrespective of the court or the relevance score, you can do that as well. We have a grid view, which gives like a more compact view in case you want to see just a lot more and quickly decide what you want to find relevant. Now, for each of these passages which are returned, you can click and it will directly open up the document, whether it's a case or legislation, and scroll to the portion, right? So you can read the passage in context, right? And for every case document, like I mentioned, there's always the summary on top. So if you want to read that as well, we can do that from here. And we collect ratings to help to improve the system. So please provide feedback, but you can also dismiss it if you don't want to. And this search is done across both cases and legislation. So you see here that relevant legislation have also been pulled up for this query, right? The person shall not be convicted um, if it was if it is established that the offense was committed without that person's knowledge or connivance, right? So the relevance is still there. You can see that relevance is captured in all of these hits, right? And like George said, we also do kind of keyword search because we know there are times that you want to find particular keywords. Let's say you want passages that speak on Audacity 3, you can type that in you don't need to do Boolean operators. So you don't need to do like plus, and, or that kind of thing. You can just type it in, and you see here that we've returned hits that have order 17 root 3, order 17 root 3. And this is because we do a hybrid search. So we do both keyword and semantic search to make finding relevant passages much easy for you. And lastly is our big feature, Ask Kwame. So Ask Kwame, with Ask Kwame, we use generative AI on top of the semantic search, and we use that to provide you a summarized answer along with inline citations to the relevant authorities, whether cases or statutes. So I'm going to use the example which is there. What is the parity of interest between um, judgment creditors and secured creditors? So you can type in a question like this. We are currently scanning through the database in the background, pulling up relevant passages, and based on those, we generate an answer. And we say Eskwai is a trustworthy AI legal assistant because unlike other tools like ChatGPT, for instance, which can make up references, George showed an example in his presentation, we provide you inline references which you can click on to see the passages directly that were used to provide the answer, right? So you have this ability to verify your answers, which you do not get with the other general purpose tools. So these buttons here are inline citations to references. Once you hover up one, you see that the document is shown, and the small snippet of the passage is also shown, right? You see this is another case. This is the Borrowers and Lenders Act, and the passage that was used is here. If you want to see the passage in context, you can click see full legislation. It will open up the legislation, directly scroll to the passage that you can directly see, right? So you have this ability to verify answers, which you don't get with other tools. Similarly, for the yeah, this is citing CI 52, right? So you have all of these references. The list of all the references store is provided at the bottom, so you can see this is a case, because of appeal case. Okay, this might be interesting. You can click from here to, I'm sorry, you can click from here to, um, it's taking a lot of data points. Comments. Just the name, sorry, let me log back in. You can click from there to directly see. Okay, so since that happened, I use that opportunity to show you our history. So every search that you make, we capture in the history. So you can always scroll and see all of the questions that you've asked in the past. But just to continue from where I left off, the passages that I was trying to, I think it was this. Which one was it? Yeah, this one. So you can click and it will open up the case and scroll to the portion that was used. In this case, it's a summary from the case that was used to provide the answer. So you can do these kinds of straightforward questions. And when the answer comes, you can copy. You can also click to regenerate a more detailed answer if that's what you want. Um, we also provide related questions every time you make a query, and you can just click directly from here to just ask that question and get an answer. So Eskwai is useful for not just these kind of straightforward questions. You can also provide like scenarios and ask Eskwai to reason through and provide you an answer. So an example could be a scenario and you ask Esquire to act as a judge. You could provide a legal position and ask Esquire to argue as counsel for or against that position, right? So there's really a lot that you can do with Esquire. I would show an example with one scenario. It's quite long, so I'll just copy and paste it so we can save on time. Right, so in a commercial dispute, one party attempted to submit an invoice as evidence. However, the opposing party raised an objection and arguing that the document had not been stamped. The court upheld the objection and document was marked as inadmissible. Subsequently, the submitting party paid the stamp duty and sought to re-tender the same, but again, the other party still objects. What will be your ruling as a judge? As the difference between one of question rule as a judge. Right? So, based on all of the references that it's been able to pull up, the Stamp Duty Act 2005, um, the Stamp Duty Act here, this Teledata ICC versus the Simon case, and Bank versus Foresight International case as well. It reads through all of this, and I leave it here so you can read. But based on all of this, as a judge, I would rule that the invoice now stamped and compliance with the Stamp Duty Act should be admitted into evidence, right? So you can do these kinds of scenario questions and get Eskwai to reason through, and this saves you a lot of time, right? If you had to do this on your own, you had to first find the relevant passages, find the authorities, and try to think through yourself. But at least with this, you already have a very quick start to go on. And if you want to dive into any of these references yourself, you can directly do that. Right. So these are the features of Eskwai in a nutshell. We have a tutorials playlist on our YouTube channel, which has more examples and details of how to do other stuff. We'll share the link in the chat so you can check that if you want to get like more details on how to do any of the things I've done so far. Right. So I'll hand over now to Lenin and Bonsrah to I think Lenin will start first with giving practical examples from use cases that can be relevant to lawyers. Right. Thank you. Let me stop sharing my screen.
Mm. Okay, Victor, good afternoon to everybody on the platform. I must say I'm really impressed with the numbers, and it gladdens my heart that lawyers are taking interest in the use of AI in legal work. I see some familiar persons on, and I'm glad that all of you are here. So before delving into the use practically, I've been using Eskwai AI for over a year. I must say probably I was one of the pioneer users because I found it very fascinating coming from a background of legal research and dispute practitioners. I think we can all agree that as lawyers, especially for those of us who do litigation, everything is about the case law and everything is about the authorities. So whether you're doing a written submission, whether you're in court doing advocacy, whether you're doing a legal opinion, your ability to marshal the relevant authorities in time saves you a lot of trouble. For instance, what I've come to realize that a lot of times we know the position of the law. You know what it is, your argument is. But just within that moment, you can't summon that legal authority to support it. And then you make the point to the judge, and the judge is like, what is your authority? And then there you are trying to remember off head. So it is from these experiences that I found it particularly interesting that Eskwai AI came onto the scene, because other generative AI tools, as I have known them, often have lacked Ghanaian context, and more importantly, has also lacked Ghanaian cases. So you're unable to get a local solution. And even for those that come close, there's often the cost prohibition, where it's so expensive because it is being built in foreign currency that it becomes ineffective or cost prohibitive for you to use for your practice. So I'm glad Eskwai AI is on the scene. And before the introduction of the native AI, I think most of us know how the legal research scene was. You had to pour through papers, pages, in order to be able to do a written submission. So to get a single authority in support of one point, you had to go through several law reports, or if you are lucky enough and there's a book that has indexes, you still have to go through that index to be able to find what it is that you need in support of your position. Now, thankfully, Esquire AI came onto the scene, and then I would say that a bit of it has changed. Coming onto this webinar, I decided that rather than just use new prompt to demonstrate my point. I'm just going to take you through my history of the use of Eskwai AI so that it becomes more relevant in terms of how I've actually been using the platform in support of my legal practice. Let me share my screen at this point and let me know if the Eskwai AI screen is what shows. Just a moment, please. I'm trying to share the screen. Share screen. Please, can you confirm for me if it is showing?
Yes, Lenin, we can see your screen.
Are we on the Esquire page?
Yes.
Okay, sure. Great. So, like I was saying earlier, in terms of litigation lawyers or dispute lawyers, the use of Esquire AI comes in some principal forms. The first has to do with the writing of legal opinions, and then you do written submissions or statement of cases. And then you have the advocacy and the real-time use. That is when you're on your feet in court or you submitted, opposing counsel is making the point that you know too well that that is not the position of the law. But in the heat of that moment, how do you summon that authority to be able to deflate or diffuse the position that opposing counsel is articulating? So I'll take you quickly to my history, and you'll notice from my history that I have a very long history because I've been using Esquire AI for a very long time. And the interesting thing is that for me, when it comes to written submissions or statement of case, whenever I'm in doubt about any particular point, Esquire AI tends to be the starting point or the exploratory point towards finding my answer. Because often, even when it does not give you the exact thing you are looking for, it gives you a basis to start looking. And the good thing is that, as most of our judicial cases are, when the judges discuss a principle, they would often discuss other cases related to it or cite other cases related to it. And so you always have a basis to engage. So take, for instance, I'll take this one. What are the ingredients in the ingredients of specific performance in land matters? And then it provides an answer in terms of what the ingredients of specific performance in land matters are. Now, this search was done because I was working on a matter where a client had bought land from somebody, had received a receipt, and then the receipt did not specify the particulars of the land. And so it became difficult asking for specific performance because we needed to demonstrate that that receipt related specifically to that subject land that he was talking about. So I had to revisit the ingredients of the specific performance in that regard. But to other more practical stuff, so assuming that you are in court, opposing counsel is tendering evidence at CMC, and then you are conflicted as to whether to raise an objection at the point of CMC. And this is a point that has come up over and over again. And so you go to Esquire AI in that moment, and then you put up the point of when an objection to evidence being tendered must be raised. It immediately gives you an answer to it based on the statute, which is the Evidence Act, and then proceeds to cite authorities for you that the evidence must be objected to at the point that it is offered in evidence, which we all know the point of offering in evidence is not going to be the CMC, but rather would have to be the point when the person actually gets into the box. If perhaps you have to, in that moment, and some judges really do that, you make the point, they know the point is correct, but then would ask you, what is your authority? And if you don't provide the authority, that point is no longer supported. Issues of consent judgment, and whether after you've entered into a consent judgment and the person has reneged on performing their part, whether you require leave to be able to enforce that judgment. So whatever query it is that you put into Eskwai AI, it provides a basis for you to be able to start your legal research and also provides legal authorities in support of it. So before coming here, I was just doing random searches so that I could demonstrate the point I'm making to you. And this is from the smart search feature that Victor spoke about. This is not the Ask Kwame AI, it's the smart search feature. So you are making a point in court about the rules of court and the rules of court not being observed. And they are trying to use that as a basis to get some application thrown out or to get some supplementary affidavit that was filed without leave thrown out. We all know that the rules of court in some positions of the court have been held to be handmaidens. In other places, the courts have said that the rules must be observed as much as the substantive law, and so you can't just disregard the rules. Simply by putting into the smart search, rules are handmaidens. So you remember, say, a significant phrase from a case you have read, which you can't recollect in the moment. If you put in just that word or that phrase, Eskwai AI will delve into its system and then pull up every single case with that single expression or that word in it. So rules are handmaidens. That is just a phrase. But it pulls up the case of Olivia Sobari versus Inspector General, 2022 Court of Appeal. And then it explains that while it is acknowledged that the rules of court are only handmaidens to aid the court in the dispensation of justice, they are equally not to be seen as irrelevant. So there in that moment, just because of that single word or that single phrase that you remembered, Eskwai AI provides you real-time answer to that case that would have probably taken you some 30 minutes or 40 minutes to find if you were to be poring over the hard copy papers or if you were to even be actually reading the full cases to be able to find. So in terms of courtroom practice, it comes in very handy because all you need based on semantic search is to make or search for a keyword or a phrase that is as close to what you are looking for as possible. And it will not only look for results based on just that exact keyword, but all associated synonyms and words or meanings that come close to it in that regard. I also, in a similar manner, did a quick search, and these are issues that often just come up because you know that the positions are well known to you. All you are looking for is to be able to marshal it in that respect. Just any quick search, and then it gives you an answer. Now you are doing legal research or you are writing a statement of case. You know that where a party has accepted a particular fact, you don't need to lead evidence in support of that particular fact. But if you want the authority to go in search of it, you have to spend another 10, 15 minutes looking for the authority if you've already not done any search in respect of it. So you just ask the question. You go into the search, must an admitted fact be proven? And then you wait for Eskwai AI to work its magic by giving you the case in support of just that fact. So you look here and it tells you that when an admission is tendered against a party, he's entitled to have proved as part of it so much the whole statement document. It just gives you a straight answer in respect of whether an admitted fact must be proven. And if you want a more interactive answer, you can actually use the Kwame AI feature. So where a fact is admitted by a party, must the plaintiff prove it? And then it will give you a concise answer together with the cases in support of that particular position that you are advocating. I think my internet connection is a bit slow. Yes. So that is the answer Eskwai AI gives. Where a fact is admitted by a party, the plaintiff does not need to prove it. According to Christabel Nyawa versus the Supreme Court held that where an adversary has admitted a fact advantageous to the cause of a party, the party does not need any better evidence to establish it. So really, in terms of legal practice, the biggest advantage of Eskwai AI for me is the time it saves lawyers to focus on the more important matters. Because these are things you've done over and over again that you know is the case, but in the heat or in the nature of that moment, you need the case so you can move on to constructing your arguments or doing other things, rather than spend the next 30 minutes or 40 minutes looking for that particular case. Now, the other advantage to Eskwai AI is that you have both the case law and the statute law in the same place. And so you are able to do legal research quite very conveniently, or you are able to prepare briefs very conveniently, because you have all the authorities that you need in the same place. As lawyers, you come into challenges where sometimes you have to go to assembly press to be able to get a hard copy of a statute because you are not sure that the version you are getting has been amended or is still valid or it's not valid. So it is a one-stop shop really for legal practice or dispute practitioners, because all the armory you need to be able to do your practice are all found within that same place, and you are able to get everything that you require for it. And like I mentioned earlier, it doesn't matter what form your query takes. All you need, especially if it is on a particular subject matter, is that the query has the sufficient terminologies. And that is the other thing that I'll point out, that you don't have to diffuse the language if you are asking Eskwai AI for a legal position on the matter. So for instance, you don't have to break down stay of proceedings. You are better off using the terminology stay of proceedings, or you are better off using lashes and acquiescence, because the training or the data set on which it has been trained to use those sort of language. So when you use the legal terminology, it's much easier for it to find what you are looking for you and provide you quick answers within the real time. So in terms of practical use, you can ask the queries, asking Kwame AI in an interactive manner, however you want to, and it will provide you concise answers together with the legal authorities. But in terms of delving deeper into the positions also, you are able to use the smart search. Additionally, when it gives you an answer, you have the opportunity of exploring all the other case law in respect of it, in terms of the full cases, the briefs. And what I often like to do also is that when it gives me the case law, I often like to look into the case law for lead into other cases, as I've been cited in relating to that principle. So in a matter of 15, 20 minutes, you are literally exploring about 5 to 10 cases on the same subject matter, which would have taken you way much more time to find if you had to use the paper approach, or you had to even use the regular digital searches in terms of using the soft copies of cases that you have. So ladies and gentlemen, I wouldn't take any more of your time, but the essence of Eskwai AI, particularly in dispute litigation, has to do with using it as a basis or an exploratory starting point for legal research, also using it in real time for authorities in courtroom advocacy and practice, because just in the nature of time is able to provide it, and then also using it to find cases on positions of law which you already know but don't want to spend more time going in search of it because you just can't have it in that moment of time. I'll hand over to Fred to continue in the respect of the transactions and how Eskwai AI may be deployed in that respect. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Lenin. All right, we'll go to Bonsrah.
Yeah, thank you, Jojo, for the introduction to AI in the legal profession, and Victor for giving us the explanation on the features of Eskwai, and Lenin for the practical insight into how you use Eskwai for your dispute and litigation work. Just one testimony on the dispute side. I mean, I don't do disputes and litigation now, but I remember some time back when a friend reached out with a simple question whether or not rape can be tried summarily. And this was somebody who was on his way, basically climbing the law court complex steps, and he was just reaching out for the authority. I knew I had read a very recent case. I knew I had read a very recent case in law school on that. I just couldn't remember the case. So I just typed that question. It was a WhatsApp message from the friend. I just typed it in. Eskwai, can we be tried summarily? And the first authority that popped up was Banusin versus the Republic. And I'm like, this is the case I've been trying to remember. I just forwarded the case to him and he was very good. So thank you for that. I would explain how Eskwai helps me in transactional work, and I won't take as much time as Lenin did, because I think Eskwai, if you're a litigation lawyer or you're a disputes lawyer and you go to court a lot, you write a lot of written addresses and all that, Eskwai will be like your best friend. But if you're a transactional lawyer, you are either working with a law firm, so maybe you are in the corporate and finance practice group for a law firm, or you are with the energy or mining or something like that, working as a law firm, help advising companies and all that. Or you are with a legal department and you are working in-house, and the bulk of the work you do is transactional and you don't have to step foot in court. And that's what I do. But I also have the law firm transactional experience. So the way you use Eskwai if you're a transactional lawyer will not be as extensive as if you are a litigation or a dispute lawyer. And I say this because if you're a transactional lawyer, you are either doing document review, or you're drafting contracts or reviewing the contract, or you are ensuring regulatory compliance and things like that. Majority of those things, you may not exactly need any legal research in order to do those. But I'm really excited about the document review features and the contract drafting features that are in the pipeline for Eskwai. It will really help us transactional lawyers, especially those of us who work in-house. The bits about the transactional lawyering that you really need Eskwai for is, I'm sure we all have this scenario where your senior in the office or the head of your practice group would have a meeting. Okay, we have this client, they want to do this, they want to do that, and we have to give them a legal opinion in the next 2-3 days. And sometimes we have no idea where to start from. I find that in that case, Eskwai is a very good exploratory tool in order to find the legal principles or what the law in Ghana says on what your client wants to do. And it's very good if you know how to do very good prompt engineering in order to ask the relevant questions from the AI tool. Another way Eskwai is extremely helpful, especially for those of us who work in-house. Your boss or your CEO asks you a question, hey, we want to do this, we want to do this. Is that possible? And you know, if you work in-house, when your CEO asks you a question or when your boss asks you a question, they expect you to know this offhand. So they are not waiting for the 2 or 3, 4 days turnaround that if you are an external counsel in a law firm, they will typically understand. If you are working with them, if he asks you the question in the morning at 12 noon when he meets you in the corridor, he expects to have some feedback. And in those instances, I find that Eskwai is extremely helpful in at least giving me something to say in the meantime before maybe later on I put together some extensive write-up, maybe a page or two for him. And I usually use the Ask Kwame feature. I don't use the Smart Search feature because, again, if you are working in-house or if you're a transactional lawyer providing legal opinion to a client, they don't really need the cases and this is the legal principle and all that. They want you to simply answer their question for them. I want to do this. Am I allowed to do that? If you are working in a law firm, you can say, okay, the law says this, this says this, and sometimes you leave it open. But if you are working in-house, they expect an answer from you as the legal expert they have hired. So I'll share my screen and just use a few questions that I have searched for when I was in a bind, and questions that even friends have reached out to ask me about, and I just didn't have the energy to go research and find the law. I just put it in Eskwai and did. Okay, so this was something somebody who works, a transactional lawyer who works with a law firm, reached out to. It's a question the person was asking, and I'm like, you know what? I have an idea what the answer should be, but let me just put it in Eskwai so that you get. I hope you can see my screen.
Yes, Bonsrah, we can see.
Okay, perfect. All right. So the person just reached out. Her senior in the office was asking her, hey, can I see a movie studio for using Ghanaian folklore and Edinkra symbols without permission? Some of these things, I think when we were in law school, Maxwell Opoku used to say something like, if you are a lawyer or a law student worth your salt and you are given a certain set of facts, the still small voice should tell you something. So some of these things, the still small voice tells you something, but you need a bit of authority. So I just put the person's query in Eskwai, ask Kwame, can I see a movie studio for using Ghanaian folklore and Edinkra symbols without permission? And let me see the answer. My God. Just a minute. Okay. So Eskwai is telling me, and oh, Lenin is Eskwai, not Eskwai AI, because the AI is already fused in there. Sorry, I had to do this. Okay. So yes, you can see a movie studio for using folklore and Edinkra symbols without permission, because according to the Copyright Act of 2005, the use of folklore for any purpose other than as permitted under Section 19 requires permission from the National Folklore Board. And then the reference for that legal statement is provided there. It says, additionally, the act specifies that a person shall not sell, offer, or expose for sale in the Republic copies of folklore and all of those things. Again, all these things are there. So for me, if I'm a transactional lawyer and my boss has asked me this question, this answer is exactly the kind of thing I would say to him in the next 5 minutes, just for him to know, like, I know my stuff, but if you want a write-up, maybe I can send you a write-up in about an hour's time, or maybe by close of business or something like that. If you're a transactional lawyer, especially if you are 2, 3, 4 years at the bar, this is one way I think of demonstrating value, because senior partners and heads of chambers really like responsiveness when it comes to things like this. Something they can say to the client, but if the client wants more, the client can then wait. Another question that, and again, this is something I was asked. You can be asked by a client in a, okay, let me just do this. Okay. Well, this one of my senior management members asked me this. So if a subsidiary that has direct creditors provides a guarantee for the debt of one of its holding companies, how would the priority ranking of the debt be determined? Again, this is something that you say, okay, I have a sense of where I can find this, maybe in the Companies Act, maybe in the Corporate Insolvency Restructuring Act and all that. That takes 30 minutes, an hour to go find and all of those things. You can simply put it in, ask Kwame, and ask Kwame will give you an answer that makes your senior management know that, okay, you know what you are about, and things like that. Let's see, it's generating a concise answer for me. Yeah. So it's, okay. When a subsidiary with direct creditors provide a guarantee for the debt of its holding company, the priority ranking of the debt is determined by the classification of the debts involved. According to the Corporate Insolvency and Restructuring Act, debts are classified into various classes, each with specific priority ranking. And then it goes ahead to give how the debts will be ranked, the authorities and all that. And then it comes in the context of guarantees. The liability of the guarantor is secondary to the primary debt and is activated upon default. And you find that this is just perfect for what you want to say. And if your senior management needs any authority, you have it. In my experience, most of the time, they don't, because they want to rely on you as the one with the legal expertise to just give them the answer. And I find that this sort of way of using Eskwai is very, very innovative and simple for me. Another friend, for example, who is also working in-house, reached out late one night. Hey, sorry to disturb your Friday evening. And then sends me this question. Is board approval required for the sale of company assets like cars, where the value of the asset is less than 75% of the company's assets, and the company's constitution is silent on this? Again, you have some sort of idea that, well, you only typically need shareholder approval if the asset is more than 75% of the total company value. But for normal assets, I think there should be some board approval required. But again, this is just a still small voice telling you something. But to get something authoritative to say, you just come to Eskwai, and in about 30 seconds, you have an extremely good answer to move forward on. So it says board approval is generally required for the sale of company assets, even if the value is less than 75%, according to section 202 and all of these things. And the legal authority is there. If you come down, all the various legal authorities relying on is there. Another thing I find extremely interesting is that, especially if you have senior management where you know they've asked you a question, but when you go back with the answer, they are going to have follow-up questions and all that. Eskwai is so intuitive that the question you put in and the discussion you have with it, it can actually generate related questions for you. So if, let's say, you have this sale of company assets less than 75%, you need board approval. It's now asking you, okay, so what are the legal requirements for selling company assets under corporate law? And you just click on that and it will just open, give you a whole set of other answers to essentially fortify yourself going into that meeting with your senior management or with the head of your transactional team or something like that. And the last, let me use the last question. Okay. So this is the analysis on the legal requirements for selling company assets under company law. I noticed that it uses like the current acts, the recent Companies Acts. Sometimes you can find references about Companies Act 1963. In Eskwai, you get very recent. My previous question, it gave the answer using the 2020 Companies Insolvency Act and things like that. So that's also something extremely valuable if you're a Ghanaian transactional lawyer working with a law firm or with a legal department. And this is also another company law conundrum that came up recently for me. So in a share transfer agreement where the sole shareholder, there's only one sole shareholder, they want to transfer some of their shares to an employee for good service. Does the company need to be involved, or is just something between the shareholder and the employee? Again, the still small voice will be telling you something, but it's great to have Eskwai give you a more authoritative answer and provide the legal references or the actual authorities in case you need to rely on, without you wasting 2-3 hours of your day going to find that. So again, if you're a transactional lawyer, I know some of the work you do on a daily basis will not really require Eskwai, especially for contract review or document review and contract drafting and regulatory compliance and things like that. But for other instances where you need to respond to legal queries from HR, from senior management or your CEO, or if you are a transactional lawyer in a law firm, from your corporate and finance head or your energy practice group, Eskwai is a very good resource to have, and it provides the initial basis for your answers, and it also has the legal authorities in case the client or your senior management wants a detailed memo or something of the sort. So that's how I typically use Eskwai and find value in it as a transactional lawyer. I also find that the accuracy of the answers depends on how much you are able to do the prompt engineering and how much you're able to simplify the question for the model to understand. And most of the time, if you ask the question in a straightforward, easy to understand manner, you get an answer that is very straightforward and very easy to understand. Thank you very much. I think I'll pass it on to the next segment where Esther, who is an associate with Samokujeto, will give a brief testimonial of how she finds value in Eskwai in her practice. Over to you, Esther.
Thanks, Bonsrah.
Hi, everyone. So yes, as Frederick just said, I am to talk about my experience with Eskwai. I'm a third-year associate at Samokujeto, and so I do a lot of litigation work. Now, that means I'm working on a lot of written submissions. I'm doing a lot of research for legal opinions. I'm drafting court processes, and of course, I'll be in court on my feet. And so to aid in my work, essentially what I'm looking for is something that would help me get authorities for principles I already know. Before I continue, by the way, let me just say everything that the others have said, I'm attesting that they're actually true. In my experience, they are actually true. So again, I would need to find authorities for principles I may know of, or sometimes I may know of a case, but may not be sure of the principles in the case. There are other times I may be in court and I would need a quick authority as I'm on my feet, or if I'm with a senior may need a quick authority and I would want to show off, So these things make me find Eskwai quite essential. Now, they've already spoken about the various tools you find on Eskwai. For the longest time, I was always using the smart search section of it, so that if I needed some authorities, I'll quickly key in a short phrase or a keyword or, a part of the law to get authorities on it. And quickly, you're going to find a list of authorities. It would show you the relevance, percentage. So quickly, you're able to know which ones you should be spending time even looking at. Now, I realized that there were times some of these authorities will pop up because the keywords you keyed in your search engines are in there, but you read and you realize maybe they are not really what you are looking for. Then I discovered the other section of Kwame. Aside the smart search angle, you also have the Ask Kwame section. So as they've already said, you're essentially to key in a question and it is going to give you a concise answer with authorities. And I think that's my favorite part. The fact that even before I delve into reading the authority, the case or the law, I'm able to tell if this is exactly what I'm looking for, because it is going to give you the answer first. And then in an index, it will attach an authority to it. Now, I'm not going to demonstrate anything because I believe Victor, Frederick, and Lenin have done enough of that. So it tells me exactly where to go to. It's going to give, as I said, a concise answer. May take it from different angles, maybe give you 3 or 4 principles or elements to what you are looking for. You get to choose the exact authority on the angle you want. and it makes work a lot easier. It makes it faster, and you're also able to assess which ones are credible or which ones are, if you like, accurate. Yes, because again, for most of our search engines, once they find the keywords in some cases, they are going to pop up for you. You then have to sit down and then go through maybe an entire case or some laws before you find that even though this authority may have the keyword I was looking for, it doesn't really answer the question I have, right? So again, the Ask Kwame feature helps me to narrow it down to get accurate answers within the shortest possible time. And of course, it makes our works, my work, very easy. If you work in a firm like mine, it means that it's going to be quite fast-paced. You have so much demand. Okay, you have a number of cases at a time. There are a number of deadlines. No one is exactly waiting for you to patiently finish one before you move on to the other. And so having a tool which is fast, which is efficient, which will give you very credible answers which are based on a database that is specific to our jurisdiction, specific to our needs. It's quite amazing. At least for my work, I think it's been a game changer for me. So as I said, I can attest to all that has been said, and I think that every lawyer should definitely jump onto this to make their works easier. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Esther. All right. So now we'll go to the Q&A part. I'm guessing most of you have a lot of questions. We see some questions in the chat that we've responded to, but if you'd want to ask any question, I think I'm gonna allow everyone to unmute themselves so you can go ahead and ask. Yeah, you can just speak and ask, or you can also type in the chat.
Hello, please, I have a question.
Yes, you can go ahead.
Okay, my name is Maxwell, and my question is, instead of going through making use of a website, is it possible for you to come out with maybe like an app, so that once you download the app and then you sign on to it, it takes you straight to the platform and then you do whatever that you want to do with, rather than now going to the website, trying to get it, and then going through those channels before you can get to the platform itself and then make use of it. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. So actually, there's a solution to the issue you just mentioned. So there's a way that you can save a shortcut to the website on your phone. And once you do that, you can just, once you click it, it will just open the website. So it would function like an app that you've installed on your phone to solve this inconvenience that you just described. If you need help to set that up, we can take this offline and then we can help with doing that setup. So there's a way to get around that issue.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, there's also a question. There's also a question in the chat box. So the person says, I'm not a lawyer, however, I'm curious, should judges be reliant on this tool? LLMs make predictions and projections based on mere factual accuracy rather than judgment soundness. How do you balance this caution? Most LLMs are also known for hallucinations. If you are to fine-tune this tool continuously to be made contemporaneously human, how do we ensure it doesn't lower its ability to shift cognitive boundaries? Okay, I will attempt to answer this. So yes, we encourage judges to use this tool, but it's not to let Eskwai write your judgment for you, basically. I think judges using this tool is, again, as part of their legal research towards preparing their ruling or their judgment, so that if there is a point of law that the judge feels, I need to write on this in my judgment, I need legal authorities for this, then the judge can come into Eskwai and use either the Ask Kwame, which is more exploratory, or use the smart search feature where the judge is looking for specific legal principles and specific legal authorities in order to help the judge make a decision on that particular point. But in terms of the actual judgment, whether or not to rule in favor of the plaintiff or the defendant, and how to apply the legal principles that Eskwai will give that judge to the facts that have been adduced at trial, will be left up to the judge to make that decision. So yes, judges can use this, but Eskwai is not here to make your judgment for you. And the point on hallucinations typically happen when the AI model is open enough for it to have that flexibility of conjuring up statements and things like that. Eskwai is a bit closed and is being trained exclusively on Ghanaian law, which is like thousands of Ghanaian cases and thousands of Ghanaian statutes. So most of the answers that even Kwame will generate for you as if it's your AI legal assistant are grounded in the specific Ghanaian database it has been trained on. And as we even wanted to go one step above this by letting Eskwai tell you that, hey, this statement I just gave you, this is my legal authority for it. And you can click on that legal authority to go and read the case yourself or go and read the statute for yourself. And in most instances, when you click on that, it actually highlights a specific passage in the judgment or in the case or in the statute where it got its answer from. So that's why we call Eskwai your trusted AI legal assistant, so that there is no hallucinations in terms of the sources. But of course, how intelligent Eskwai is to fine-tune all that data set in order to answer the question in the way you want would be different depending on how you do the prompting and how you simplify your questions, so that Eskwai can answer your question if you ask and it understands it from a different angle. It will still use real life cases to answer it in a particular way. It might not be the way you want, but there will be legal authority behind it. And sometimes I've found that if you change how you ask the question in a different mood or you add more facts, you end up getting the kind of answer you are looking for. So that's how we've worked around the risk of inaccuracy and hallucinations. I hope that answers your question. There's another question. Please, is there any free trial period and for how long? Jojo, can you answer this?
Yeah, so I see there's a number of questions on pricing, so I think I'll address that. Yeah, so we have a 1 week, 7-day free trial, which you can get on. And as a follow-up, I think there's some pricing plans, so I'll just go over that. So we have individual plans and we have firm plans. With the individual plans,
Just share the screen.
okay, sure, I can do that. Let me pull that up. Oh, do you want to talk about that? Do you have it open?
No, Jojo, whilst you get the screen sorted, I think there's something I need to talk about as a lawyer who has been using Eskwai for a long time. And I know a concern that other lawyers have spoken with have raised before. I've already addressed the issue of hallucinations and accuracy from the question that was asked earlier. But there's another aspect of confidentiality and search queries and things like that lawyers have, because most people don't want you training your model on their personal data and all of those things. So the only personal data you put into Eskwai will be at the point where you are signing up. So your name, the kind of practice you do, the law firm you are with, your email and things like that. We don't train the model on that sort of personal data. We don't train the model on that. but what your search queries, in order for, because Eskwai is based on artificial intelligence and machine learning. That means that the more it learns, the more accurate it becomes. So your search queries need to be constantly, the model needs to be learning from your search queries. So it's trained automatically on the search queries. So we always advise that don't put confidential client information in Eskwai when you are doing your searches. And I mean, it doesn't make any sense to ask Kwame, okay, I'm representing XYZ company and I want to do this and this. You can ask something, you can ask in a more generic form and Eskwai would give you the answer. And then you can use that answer to go do whatever you want to do for whichever client you have. So as much as possible, we encourage people. I mean, it shouldn't even be said, but apparently you need to say it, that don't put confidential or personal information in your search queries, because the model needs to train on it. I don't know if that answers any concern that some people have. We will take more questions if there are any.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, Jojo, you can share the pricing here.
Yeah. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay, great. Yeah, so there have been questions on pricing, so I'll just address that. So we have three. So we have individual plans and we have firm plans. The firm plans are not public yet, so I'll talk about that in a bit. But the individual plans are what's on our website. We have a 7-day free trial, so you can already explore before you decide whether or not it's useful for you to pay. So we have the Pro, the Standard, and the Student, Student for Students. So the Pro plan comes with unlimited smart search, unlimited library, brief, case principles, and then a cap on the Ask Kwame queries. So if you need more usage and more features like the case brief, and then the standard plan, 100 Ask Kwame queries, unlimited smart search, unlimited library, and then you don't have case brief and principles. We're actually working on a lot of new features that will be launching next month, which would really be useful, like a smart citator, amendment indicator, and a lot of others. So that you can derive a lot of value from it. So this is the individual plans, but if you pay annually, it's actually cheaper. So if you decide to pay annually, the Pro plan ends up becoming 1,800 for the whole year. So you get to save a lot if you decide to pay annually. And yeah, so for those that join this webinar, like we advertise on the poster, if you buy 1 month, you're going to get an extra month free. So if you do buy, just let us know that you want the call and then we'll activate that for you. So this is for the individual plans. And then we have firm plans. Somebody asked, how long have you been in operation? So we've been around, we launched in September 2023, and we have over 1,600 users across 120 firms on Eskwai. Having recognized that we have people from different firms, we decided to create the firm plan that we are yet to make public, but you can already take advantage of it by emailing us. I'll put my email in the chat. So with the firm plan, the idea is that you have one central account with which you have everyone in your firm on there. So we have unlimited users. So everyone has their own account, which they can log. You don't need to share passwords, and you have much stronger privacy guarantees. And we have these three options. The basic plan, they are all similar. The difference is the number of queries. So the basic one is ideal for firms that have less than 5 lawyers and don't have much query usage, so 700 queries. And then the 3,000, the plus is the 3,000 per month. That's for ideal for firms or legal departments with more than 5 lawyers and a lot more usage. So that's like 2,100 Ask Kwame queries. And then the most expensive, the premium is 6,000 per month. And that's for firms or departments that have a lot more intense research needs. And that comes with 4,200 Ask Kwame queries per month. And this is, you pay this annually. And again, the key advantage of this is that you have one central account that you have everyone in your firm or department on there. You have unlimited users, and so everyone has their accounts. You don't need to share passwords. You're not paying per seat. If you need more usage, you decide a plan that works for you. If you decide you need more usage, you can just top up and pay for more queries, and it's really flexible for you. So yeah, so these are the plans that we have. Like I said, the firm plan is not public yet, and so if you want to get it, please reach out to me. I'm gonna put my email in the chat, and then we can set up a call to set that up for you.
Okay, I think there are also some questions.
Please,
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yes,
Max, go ahead.
this is Maxwell again. You see, some of us, the work that we do, it's more of research. So we are every day doing research for our bosses. And giving me a 300 query a month, for me, I don't think it will be enough to at least really execute my work. So is there a way that maybe an individual plan, it will go far more than the 300 query, like say an unlimited kind of thing with a certain price tag on it? Because my job is to do research for my.
Yeah, Max, I think, Jojo, I think I can answer this question, and then maybe if you have anything to add. Max,
Okay.
so the 300 is specifically for the Ask Kwame feature. And the Ask Kwame feature is the more of interactive, kind of similar to ChatGPT for Ghanaian lawyers kind of thing. So that's the interactive one. But the kind of research you need to do as a research assistant, you'd typically be needing the legal principles and the actual cases and all of that. That's the smart search feature. And that one is unlimited if you're on the pro plan. I don't know if that makes sense. So you can still be doing searches on the pro plan, even when you interactive feature.
Yeah, I think the webinar is still on.
Maxwell, I hope my answer was clear. So it's not like you upgrade to the pro and then you can only do 300 searches a month. The 300 searches is for if you want to use the Ask Kwame feature, which is the interactive version of the AI. But if you want to get legal principles, legal authorities to help you write your judgment drafts or written addresses and written submissions and all of that, that's the smart search, and that one is unlimited if you're on the pro plan.
Yeah, senior, I get your point, but you realize that I try to make use of the 1 week trial thing, and then I went to the smart search. But then the smart search, the only thing I could get was, I think, it only gave me the case.
The cases to support the principles.
It gave me the case in which I'll be able to at least trace the principle. And you realize that some of these people that I do research for, you'll be there and then they'll be sending you messages and they'll be like, for example, a typical one was recently when I was asked, if someone is part of a statutory body and then there is a change of government, does it mean that the body should be dissolved, or like, do you get my point? And so when the person asks you this kind of question, I don't think you need a smart, but you need the Ask Kwame to give you the information that you need. And in my field of work, most of the time, within a day, you can be asked like 50, 60 questions.
Okay.
Just for them to get that information from you within 2-3 hours.
Okay, I think
that is the point that I'm trying to make.
Okay, yeah. So maybe just to jump in. Yes. So so we have a few options. Yeah. So with the 300 Ask Kwame queries, there's the option to top up. It's not publicly here though, but so there's the option to top up if you need more queries. Also, I mean, I guess you've made a suggestion, so we'll also work on a possible unlimited plan too, based on the suggestion. But just so that you know, based on usage in the past year or so, nobody has ever used their 300 Ask Kwame queries ever. So maybe you'll be the first one, in which case, well, that would be a good reason to maybe have another plan or unlimited plan. Yeah.
Okay, there's also a question someone sent me directly. So it says, how frequently is the data updated considering the changes our law undergoes, especially with cases? So with the updates for the case law, we try as much as possible to update it monthly. So it's not going to be the case that a judgment comes out tomorrow or last week and then you find it on Eskwai. And there's a reason why we do it that way. We've realized that sometimes the judgments that come out of the registries, sometimes lawyers go back to the court for clarifications or for corrections in the judgment, or sometimes even the judges would update their judgment and all that. So you find that a month interval is good enough to make sure that whatever we are putting into the data set on Eskwai is the most current and the most final version of it. And also sometimes, it takes a while before you get the certified true copies from the registries. And those are the ones that have undergone some sort of quality assurance internally within the judicial system. So we try as much as possible to wait for that monthly interval before we put or before we update it with the cases. And another aspect of updating in terms of cases that have been overruled or modified, or even with the statutes that have been overruled or modified. I think in the introduction, Jojo mentioned that there are upcoming features that will be live from next month going, where especially for statutes, for example, there will be an amendment indicator for you to know whether this statute has been amended, and maybe a link to the amendment version, or at least the portion of that statute that has undergone amendment. We are also considering a smart citator feature, which would tell you whether this judgment or this decision of this court has been overruled, or whether there has been a separate pronouncement on it by the Supreme Court, or even whether there has been any application, whether that case has been applied in a higher court and things like this. That will be the smart citator feature. They are all in the works and they will be coming next month. I think I've already answered the question. There's a question on, are there any agentic features such as reviewing submissions, modifying, fact-checking, and ensuring proper citations? No, for now, we don't have those. Those will be long-term additions if we find there is a significant need for it amongst our user base. And I've also answered the question, is it generating answers solely based on Ghanaian law, or can it do comparative features? I think for now, we've answered that it is using just Ghanaian law, and there are plans to add UK cases in the interim. And then, Jojo, another important question. Are there practical guidelines for transactional lawyers, like ORC directives and regulatory notices that aren't included in legislation for Ask Kwame features?
Yes.
I think I'll let you answer. Yeah.
Yeah, we got feedback about the administrative notices and directives as being useful. So we are working on creating those and also having them be available on Eskwai. Yeah. About the question on review features and agentic features. Yeah, so actually we are actually working on some of those too, because also from feedback, I realized that those will be useful. So yeah, so we have a bunch of exciting new features that are in the works that will be launching over the next months. So yeah, it's definitely gonna get better, much better than what you've heard today.
Okay. So Jojo, one important question. I don't know if you want to answer it or whether Victor will take it. Somebody's asking, how different is this from Judy Legal?
Okay. I can handle that. I will tell you.
All right.
Yeah. So, well, I guess the big one is the how we do search. We already spent a lot of time explaining about semantic search. Yeah, so the fact that we use semantic search and they do keyword search. And so with keyword search, as everyone knows, yeah, it's very cumbersome. You have to find the right keywords to then find the relevant cases of legislation. But with semantic search, you just write it like the way that you do, like, or you say to a colleague, and then it retrieves the relevant cases and legislation. And so that's one of the key ways as offering semantic search, so you don't need to waste time trying to find keywords. The other one I actually don't know how I know they have a AI feature. I've never seen it in action before, so I don't really know much about that. But I mean, at least compared to other tools generally, in terms of how our AI system works, which might also be the case for Judy too, the fact that one, it's built on top of semantic search, and so we make sure we retrieve all the relevant cases based on the intent of your query, and then generating the answer and including inline citations for every claim. So that's really one thing that we've put in a lot of efforts to design to make sure that every claim that is made is backed by a passage in a legislation or some case, and we make it very easy for you to verify. And that's one way that as Kwame or Eskwai actually stands out compared to a lot of other tools out there. And the fact that we also, I think maybe they also have this, but case briefs. Yeah, I think they also have that too. So I guess maybe similar.
And the pricing, very important.
Oh, Victor, you can jump in.
Yeah, yeah, and the pricing as well. So as of now, we are the most competitive. You can check I mean, none of the only plan on Judy that gives you access to AI is the most expensive plan. With ours, you have access to it even on our standard plan, right? So you already get a lot of value for your money. You can check for yourself.
Okay, I hope that answers the question. All right.
Yeah, I think it does. I think we are about a little over our time limit. We will end here. And if you have any further queries, you can reach out to myself, Bonsrah. I think I can leave my email in the chat, or you can reach out to Jojo and Victor too, who would also leave their emails in the chat. Or you can just reach out to us on LinkedIn. We are very responsive on there as well. All right. Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you so much for giving us 90 minutes of your time this weekend. We hope this has been very insightful for you. We appreciate all your questions, and we are working on building the AI legal assistant that you can trust and that can effectively innovate and reduce the challenges of legal research and legal work in Ghana. So thank you so much. And we look forward to any questions or suggestions for improvement that you may have. Thank you so much. All right. Have a good weekend. Bye-bye.
Okay, thanks. Bye, everyone.